Dimensional alignments. What does this even mean? What is a dimensional alignment? Following the circadian rhythm, we see that conscious perception is somewhat guided by the orbiting of 6 spheres that are tidally locked within the 5th dimension. This is literally just our perception within time. It is the tuning of energy to the human body which may be considered the mind's spaceship. Our biggest orbit of experience is related to the delta wave, which either has a 1 Hz processing speed or 1 day orbit when relating to the vortex. Considering its all harmonic ratios and human perception exists within delta to fast gamma, we see that humans gather information from 6 harmonics of experience. Fast gamma may be our first step into the afterlife or denser realms. When relating to our physical universe, we can say that delta and theta are dreamland, or the past. Alpha and beta is wake state, and that slow and fast gamma is towards the afterlife or future state of the greater now. In order to be in a shifted dimension with slight overlap, you'd either need to have your delta state shifted inward to the fast gamma towards the noviverse direction, or fast gamma would be needed to be shifted towards the lower verse. For a dimension of the noviverse being related to our universe, we could say that a 2.5 Hz delta wave would relate to the 80 Hz wave of a being in a completely shifted dimension. The 5 Hz alpha wave would be related to a 160 Hz field. Each of these is related to a time scale of orbit. This is considering only brainwave activity. The alpha and beta state would then be 320 Hz and 640 Hz. When you consider orbits of the fluid in the 5th dimension, delta relates to a 24-hour orbit, theta a 12-hour orbit, alpha a 6-hour, beta a 3-hour, slow gamma a 90-minute, fast gamma a 45-minute, and so on. This shows that in the denser realms of the noviverse that a 640 Hz conscious harmonic would be related to a 337-second orbit. All of those inward experiences would align daily. However, considering we are concerned with perceived experience, it may make more sense to approximate dimensional relationships of time dilations and Lorentz contractions based off relative size and orbital rate. For example, the delta wave of 2.5 Hz has a diameter of 2.4 times 10 to the 6 meters. The slow gamma wave of 40 Hz has a diameter of 10,000 meters. Here we see a difference in size of 240 times with a difference in rotation of 16 times. When you put the two together, you get 3,840. However, it is a rough estimate, and on the other side of the spectrum, you get 4,096. A safe number to use for the time dilation factor between dimensions relating to 5 harmonic shifts would be 4,000 to 1. You can now see how dimensional alignments emerge. This time dilation chart between dimensions would be related to 5 dimensional shifts, referring to dimensional shifts of perception. 1 dimensional shift would relate to the time dilation between our 2.5 Hz delta to the 40 Hz slow gamma. The amount of time dilation between 1 harmonic would be 8 times, and this is related to the diameter being 4 times as small while having the orbital frequency being twice as much. Golden alignment. Why even discuss fields of energy outside our perception? What does this have to do with our daily routine and the choices we make? Synchronization of the light state starts from the greatest reaches of our experience. We are a spiral of energy that is constantly drifting inwards towards the center of time. The physics of love, synchronicity, shows that our natural manifestation is the end result of the synchronization of all the realms of the lower verse. Aligning with this flow is key for connecting to the universal mind and influencing denser realms of creation. Creation stemming from offset bodies will not last in time. They will continuously be drifting further and further from the golden spot, causing the laminar flow of your creation to become turbulent. It will increase the amount of pacing you ultimately undergo. Consider water coming from a faucet in a smooth, continuous flow. That could be considered the natural energy of creation. You could say you have full strength of the laminar flow on your side when you work with it. Forcing a will or want that is not in your flow is like trying to fill a cup that is not underneath the faucet and attempting to fill it by splashing the water sideways with your hands. What is one to do when the cup is not under the faucet and yet that is the one you want filled? You can either move the cup or you can move the faucet. However, it is important to understand that this will not last, as the projections of the lower verse will constantly be fighting you. Call this the intuition of the heart, or our greatest sense, that of synchronicity. Prayer. How might these concepts relate to modern-day prayer and religions? Have we just theoretically discovered the foundations of prayer and how it may work? Let's discuss what prayer might be considered and then discuss the greater picture involved. Prayer, in the simplest terms, might be considered like asking God for something, maybe something physical or mental, like guidance. It's a sort of way to connect consciously to God and to help others, help you forgive, and ultimately tends to create more love and harmony in your life. Let's now consider the natural synchronization of the lower verse realms, the habitable spiral of perception, the circadian rhythm of the human, and the denser realms of the noviverse. Let's start with our awake state and how that relates to our universe. Our awake state is primarily focused within alpha and beta waves of conscious activity. While in awake state, our conscious minds dominate our cognitive process, while the subconscious, or universal mind, may be whispering. The actions we take are in our physical realm. We may move objects and perform almost limitless actions within this space. However, we can really only go so far based on the spirit potentials that exist. Actions that pace too far from the laminar flow of your creation will cause you to spiral into delusions as they become disconnected from the laminar flow, or faucet of creation. Lower verse connections. From the circadian rhythm, we see that we first encountered the theta wave type at 10:30 p.m. We then enter the delta range at approximately 11 p.m., and then re-enter the theta range at about 2:30 a.m. This shows that our point of most submersion into the lower verse is at about 12:45 a.m. Let's consider this a turning point in our conscious orbit. Is there a difference when moving into the lower verse versus moving out of it? Orbiting towards the lower verse. What we see from our gyroscopic precession is that after about 4 p.m., we are headed back towards the lower verse. This is the moment when we first start migrating back towards the purest realms of creation. It's important to understand that starting new activities at this time is not ideal, and it may be better to be ending the daily routine at this point. In an energetic sense, what are we doing? Energy is constantly spiraling inwards towards denser creations, so this time of day may be seen as swimming upriver or against the wind. How does that translate into experience? When riding a bicycle into the wind, it is best to tuck to avoid drag. This drag may be related to the synchronization of our daily egos to the true you that exists without delusion. Consider our natural orbit is related to the focusing of experiences, and we see that holding delusions will cause you to misalign with your incoming flow. When relating to communication with beings of less dense realms, you see that this is when it's time to listen. Orbiting towards the noviverse. After 12:45 a.m., you could say that we transition from orbiting towards the lower verse to orbiting towards the noviverse. At this point, you could say that we are going with the wind. Consider a gust of wind or wave in the ocean. Each gust or wave could be considered like a thought form emerging from the lower verse. This is almost when it's best to ask for what you want. Imagine surfing against the waves of an ocean. You really can't do it. While surfers paddle out, they almost do their best to avoid being caught. However, when going with the waves, the surfer can perform various maneuvers. They can cut up, cut down, do a hang 10, and almost any other move they choose, all under one condition. They need to work with the wave that is coming and understand the limits of their experience as a surfer. Only the most experienced surfers catch the biggest waves on the planet. In the same sense, those waves have the ability to do much damage if you do not ride them all the way to the end. In short, before bed, it may actually be more beneficial to listen rather than to ask and project. When moving forward in the morning, may be a better time to ask and guide the creation of your experience. Sleep. When we sleep, our egos are somewhat removed. This may allow for the natural synchronization of energy to work more efficiently. Perhaps it is the key relationship between sleep and rejuvenation. When we are awake, our postures of mind, body, and spirit may somewhat be controlled by the daily deeds of life. This implies going along with the delusions you have been born into, along with the ones you may have picked up during your life's journey. Many of these actions are not natural to the universe and are a result of societal expectations. They become compounded on top of each other and somewhat layered like the layers of an onion. We are all fundamentally made of the same fluid of experience as every other bit of physical matter within our dimension. The true you in this sense may be the you that exists without delusions. It is a perfect flow of laminar fluid that stems from the lower verse and drifts inwards through wake state and continues all the way to the noviverse. The curling of this fluid is what creates your body. It is the curling of fluid as it drifts inwards. Holding postures creates turbulent flows around the center of your manifestation. When we sleep, our awake egos somewhat dissolve and the subconscious mind takes over. Lucid dreaming may be a partial exemption to this.